What is up, ROCKPOINT Church? My name is Jadon. I'm super excited to be bringing the devotional for you guys today. And today we'll be reading out of Job 38. And so before we start reading, I just want to give us some context of what this verse is. So Job was a man who was faithful to God. He praised God, he worshiped God, he was a man who was after God. And Satan comes to God and says, listen, he's only faithful to you because he has everything. He's rich, he has a family, he's never been sick, he's got all these great things. And so God allows Satan to do these awful things to him. One thing God says is that you can't kill him. And so Satan brings him sickness and he brings him death and he takes away his money and his fortune. And Job remained faithful, but all his friends keep saying to doubt God. And Job was faithful to God, but then he got to this point where he said, God, where are you? God, what are you doing? God, why is this happening? God, answer me. Why do these bad things happen to me? And this was God's response in verse 38, verse 4. And it says, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation, when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much, who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? What supports its foundations and who's laid its cornerstone as the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy? It keeps going. It says, who kept the sea inside the boundaries and burst from the womb as I clothed it with clouds and wrapped it in a thin darkness? It keeps going on and saying, who created the shores, who created the sky, who created the ocean? And really what God is saying is, where were you when I created everything? Now, a lot of us hear this and be like, oh, God sounds like a big bad bully. He let these awful things happen to Job. He's allowed these things to happen. But really, what God is saying here is something so beautiful. He's not being a bully to Job. He did not have to answer Job, but what he's doing is he's showing Job how much bigger he is than Job's problems. How much bigger he is than the earthly issues. Because what he's saying is, Job, these things are happening to you. You got sick, you lost this, you lost that. But guess what? I am the creator of everything and I am bigger than your issues. And I think a lot of us find ourselves here in 2020 feeling like what is happening, COVID and the killer hornets or whatever, the bees and the storms and the fires and all these awful things are happening in 2020. And we're like, God, where are you, God? If you're such a good God, if you're such a gracious God, why would you allow these things to happen to me? But what I love is we can turn back to Job. And we can see God's response. And he says, where were you? Because I am bigger. God is saying, I am bigger than the issues of your life. I am bigger than the stresses you have. I am bigger than your anxieties. I am bigger than your doubts. I am bigger than your shame. I am bigger than your guilt. I am bigger than your happiness. I'm bigger than your joy. I am bigger than your abusers. And I'm bigger than your accusers. And I'm bigger than anything that could ever happen. And what's so powerful about this is that's not a bully. God is not bullying us. He's not saying, oh, I'm bigger, so I'm going to allow these things to happen. What he's saying is these things are going to happen, but turn to me because those might seem big. Those might seem scary, but I'm bigger. Shame hurts, but he's bigger. Depression hurts, but he's full of joy and peace. He's bigger. And so when we find ourselves in these situations, when we find ourselves in the year of 2020, and we feel like we have nowhere to go, remember that God is bigger. God is bigger. Some of us might be saying, you know what? This year hasn't been as bad. Maybe some of you guys are like, it's been hard this year because I've been feeling guilt, or maybe because I have peace and I have joy and I have happiness this year and I'm not afraid. God is still bigger than those. Because see, God is the deliverer of joy. God is the deliverer of peace. God is the deliverer of happiness. So even when you have joy and you have peace and you have happiness, God is bigger, and turn to him in thanks. But if you're still feeling down, sad, depressed, anxious, full of anxiety, you feel depressed, you feel suppressed, you feel like there's so many bad things happening in your life, remember that God is bigger. See his response in Job. Where were you when I created this? Because I am bigger than the things that cause you to tremble. And what I love is the song Tremble. And I want to encourage you guys to listen to it. There's a verse in there that says, you make the darkness tremble. See, the things that bring us fear tremble in the presence of the Lord. Because God is bigger. So my encouragement to you guys is to remember that. I'm going to say it one more time. To remember that God is bigger. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.